Hey, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Matthew Maley for MatthewMaley.com. Well, as you guys probably saw from my Twitter account tonight, it was officially the second event of the Arizona Poker Tours season. I think it's season 15. Honestly, I can never keep track, or maybe it's even season 16. I think it's 15. But it was the second event. As you guys know, my first event didn't go too well. Ended up getting knocked out kind of early. So I'm happy to report that I ended up lasting a lot longer this time and did make it to the final table. So wanted to, while I didn't win it, I did score some decent points and ended up pulling down 5th place. So I wanted to go over just some of the bigger hands, as well as just kind of let you guys know how the tournament ended up. So from really the jump, things were pretty crazy. I could tell it was just going to be one of those kind of tournaments. We only ended up having like 22 or 23 people, I believe. But within the first round and a half, I was really picking up some hands. I had picked up, within the first round and a half, I picked up, very first hand, I picked up pocket jacks, first off. I was actually on the dealer button, very first hand, picked up jacks. Went around, I think 2 people called, 1 raised. No, 3 people called. I raised. Everybody folded to me, so I picked up a decent pot off of that. Then probably 5 hands later, I picked up jacks again. I picked up ace king, pocket queens, and ace queen within the first round and a half. On all of them except the 1, only picked up the blinds. Or the blinds in like a couple small bets. None of them saw the flop. But whatever, at the end of the day, I was all right with it. I was sitting, decently from pretty quick. Ended up, big hand for me, I picked up ace queen. And at this point, I was probably up to about 21 or so. Picked up ace queen. Raised, I believe I was 2 away from the cutoff. Yeah, pretty sure I was. 2 away from the cutoff. And picked up ace queen. There was 2 calls in front of me. I raised. The big blind called, and that's what it was. The big blind called, as well as did one of the other people. So flop comes out, flop a queen. Flop comes with like queen 9-4 rainbow. So feeling beautiful about that, obviously. The large blind actually ends up leading out. Even though I'd raised pre-flop, they were trying to take back the possession of the action, really, and went ahead and let out. I raised and took the pot down, which actually got me up to 27.50. So, definitely pretty decent. Was sitting pretty well. Then probably about 7 or 8 hands later from that, I picked up pocket jacks again. And this time it didn't work out anywhere near as well. Ended up raised pre-flop. Actually, there had already been a small raise, like a double the pot. So I re-raised, just trying to see where I was at, and got 1 call. Flop hit an ace, ended up leading out. I was out of position, so maybe I probably should just called pre-flop, but whatever. I was out of position. It is what it is. And I think I was in the small blind or the big blind on that hand, and the guy who had originally made the raise was. Yeah, if I was small blind, he would have been like 5th to act, 4th or 5th to act. So ace flopped, had a bad feeling about it, but still had to take the shot at it. So I let out, and at this point the blinds were probably 75, 150. No, probably a little bit less than that. Probably no, not 20, 40. Probably 30, 60. What are you doing, dog? Sorry, dog's wilding out. Blinds were probably 30, 60. So he had probably raised it to probably 120 pre-flop, and I probably made it like 360 or something. On the flop, I bet another 360 or so, maybe even a little bit more than that. And ended up, he popped me, he pushed all in. So I let it go. I could have called, but I had a bad feeling, and he ended up showing the ace. So I made a right play. That took me down to 16.50. He ended up having ace like 4 or something, so of course that nice 3-outer hit me, but it was what it was. Ended up, what was it after that? I actually ran a pretty solid bluff but I'll get into that in a second. It was pretty tight. Ended up hitting break at exactly where I started. 1,500 chips, exactly where I started. I really wish, part of me was going to push all in, because right before the first break is the last point where you can do the rebuys. You can only rebuy for the first hour, and you only get 1,000 chips. But because I did have 1,500, I decided, why risk it to end up, with nothing, losing 500 chips for just the purpose of rebuying. There's really no purpose in that. So if I would have pushed with my Jack 10 offsuit, I actually would have runner, two pair, and probably would have taken out a nice pop. But I didn't. So I went to break with 1550 in chips, and there were, sorry, I'm making sure I get all this right. There were 15 people left at that point. So still had 2 tables going, and was sitting all right. So ended up, pretty quick after that, I got really low. I ended up having 3 hands kind of in a row that I made a raise with, and somebody either pushed all in or came over the top, or I raised with a decent hand, an ace-10, king-queen, something like that, and when the action hit, when the flop hit, nothing good happened. So I ended up having to mug those. So I actually got down to about 800 or 900 in chips. Then was able to pick up 3 or 4 hands in a row that got me up to probably about 1,200, 1,300. Then I picked up a king 10 of spades. Oh, I'm sorry, king 10 of hearts, and flopped. The flop came up Jack 10 queen. So I felt good with my bottom pair, as well as open ended on the straight. So I felt good with that. Also, I could have had a redraw for the heart flush as well. So I ended up made a bet. The person actually who was next to me pushed all in, and she had less chips than I did by a little bit. And I ended up calling it. She had pocket 9s, and I ended up taking down that pot. So that took me up to about 2,000 in chips, and we were down to 13 players at that point. So ended up, a couple of hands after that, I picked up king 9, and I thought this was a pretty good play. I had a king 9 off, but I've always liked king 9. King 9 is one of my favorite hands for some reason. I don't know why. I've always really liked king 9, and I ended up flopping a 9. Flop came up like 9 blank, 9 like 6-4 or something like that. And I ended up checking. And even though I'd raised pre-flop, I ended up checking because it was a player that I played with a lot, and we had some good battles going back and forth. So I actually felt like pretty confident that he was going to bet. And I know this is a hot button, if you will, that a lot of pros will say, just bet straight out, because a lot of people would say I missed a bet, because if I would have bet, there's a possibility he would have raised, at which point I could have re-raised, which I do see, and that is possible. But at the same time, it's always fun to check raise. So I did check to him. He put in a bet, and I popped it. I don't remember what I raised it to. At this point, the blinds would have been 75, 150, or 100, 200. And so I ended up popping. I might have pushed all in, honestly, and he ended up mucking. So that got me up to 26.75, and that led me to a pretty nice bluff that I ran. I was in the big blind, and no, I'm sorry, I was under the gun, and I just decided I was going to make a crazy play, and I raised with queen 5 offsuit, and got one call from a guy named Mike, who's a pretty solid player. We played a lot over the years between my house and at these tournaments. He's actually somebody I work with at Wells Fargo, and we've gone back and forth a lot, honestly. He's a solid player, so I like playing with him because he helps me get better. So the flop came up, I want to say Jack, no, it was 8-7, it was 8-7 deuce or tray, I think, something in there, and he ended up, he checked, and I'm sorry, I checked, he bet, I raised, he called. Turn card came out, another blank. Maybe that's what I think the jack hit. And again, I checked. Again, he bet. And this time I pushed all in on him. And again, I had queen 5, and he ended up letting it go, flipped over his ace queen and said respect. So I ended up taking down that pot, and that got me up. I'd lost a couple hands between there because that only got me up to 29-25. So I'd lost a few hands after I got him to 26-75. But that pot actually did help me out some. So the blinds couldn't have been that high. I'm sorry, they couldn't have been that high because 5-10, 10-20, 15-30, 20-40, 30-60, and that's when they go to break. So the blinds were probably 40-80 at this point, honestly. I don't know why I was thinking they were higher than that. They were probably 40-80. So it wouldn't have been that big of a pot, but I ended up getting up to 29 at that point. Pretty close after that, got to the final table, lost a couple people, got knocked out, and we were down to the final table. So got to the final table with that same amount, 29-25, and was in 7th place. And that is when the poker roller coaster really started. I have never had a final table this crazy. I've never had a poker tournament this crazy. And the fact that this craziness happened in the span of, just the final table, in the span of another couple hours, was seriously nuts. Like, nuts. So, it was, I'll get into all the details, but started off, started off pretty quick in, picked up pocket 8s, and I'm sorry, prior to that, I actually pushed all in with king queen. I lost, I think, 2 hands, so I dropped a little bit down to probably about 2,300, and I pushed all in with pocket queens, picked up the blinds and antes, and then pretty quick after that picked up pocket 8s, and ended up slow playing them. And I don't know why, I just had this feeling that for whatever reason that either they were going to hit a set or I was going to be able to play them that way. So I ended up just slow playing them. And I'm pretty sure at this point, blinds were 50-100. So I ended up just calling, and 5 other people called. So it might have even been 75-150. I think they were 75-150 now that I think about it. I got to start writing down all the blind rounds so I can give a better analysis. But ended up just calling. Flop came out 7-7-4. And I bet 775 chips. The pot was probably about 1,100. So figure 2 would have been 3, so 6 would have been 9. Plus the blinds and antes. Yeah, so it was probably about 1,100, 1,125 in the pot. And I bet 775 at it. And I ended up taking it down. So that actually got me to 41.25. And was definitely a nice pickup there. Very next, a couple of hands later actually, it was against the same guy, Mike. I was in the small blind. He was in the big blind. It ended up folding all the way around, and I had ace-9 of clubs. And I had already kind of told myself, I already decided in my mind that I was just going to call the bet, because I just felt that he was going to push. He was getting pretty low in chips. Was down to, well, let me see here. He was down to probably about, I would say probably about 800-900 or so. And I just had this feeling. That, you know what, he's going to push, and it's going to be a weaker hand than ace-9. And if it's not, it's still worth it for where he's at. So, and I'd already decided that when I was calling the bet. So I called the bet, and sure enough, he shoved. He ended up having queen-jack, and I ended up hitting the straight and then hit the flush. It was a crazy, crazy hand came up there. And he actually had a redraw to the boat on the river, but it didn't come. And I was able to take him out. And that got me up to 5,700, and I was about third in chips. So literally, the very next hand, maybe not the very next hand, but within 2 hands, oh, it was tough. I ended up picking up another ace-9, actually. It was ace-9 offsuit. And, no, I'm sorry, it was ace-10. It was ace-10. And the flop came up 10-9 blank. And this one lady bet into me, and I just called. And again, I probably could have raised here and seen where I was at a little bit better, but I just called. she had a pretty decent sized stack. I was sitting at 57. She had, I think like, no, yeah, she had 46-ish. About 46, 45-ish or so. So I just called. Turn card came out another 9. And again, she made a pretty decent sized bet. And again, I called. And then on the river, a total blank hit. But I really didn't know where I was sitting. Again, you know, I'm half of me thinking, okay, you've got top pair, top kicker. No straight hit, no flush hit. You know, you could be sitting, you could take this down. And she ends up pushing all in. And at this point, it was only like another 900 at a 5,000 or a 6,000 chip pot or something like that. It was probably even more than that. So I was at like 6-1 on my money. So I ended up calling, and she had 10-9, so she had the boat. So, of course, it made my call look really bad. But at the end of the day, I mean, I could have seen her playing Ace-King the exact same way. I could have seen her playing King-10 the exact same way. I could have seen her playing a hand like Queen-Jack on the open-ended straight draw the exact same way. You know, just being somewhat aggressive with it. Semi-bluffing at it. So that one hurt. So I ended up going from 57 to 1125 in one hand. Then picked up back-to-back hands that I pushed all in. Didn't get called on either one. And got right back up to 3,100. So in the span literally of 3 hands, I got up to 3,100. I then doubled up to 6K pretty quick after that with jacks again. Up against the guy who was almost identical to me in chips. He had literally like 75 more than me. And he pushed all in pocket 9s. I called with the jacks and they held. So I was up to about 6 grand. And literally 2 hands later, I was back down to 2475. Now this hand I definitely could have played better, but the player that it was against has been a player that I've usually been able to run over a decent amount, just in terms of my aggression towards him. He's not as aggressive of a player, and I had ace-queen offsuit, raised it. He only called pre-flop, so I raised. He ended up calling, and the flop came out like 8-4 tray, I believe, or 8 tray deuce, something like that. And I instantly pushed all in. He didn't have that many chips left, so I was, well, he had a decent amount at that point. He probably had like 2,000 left. But I really was figuring he was on, you know, big cards. You know, I was even thinking if he had ace-king, I might be able to push him off of this. So I pushed all in. He snap called, he had pocket 8, so he had the set. And that ended up dropping me back down to 2,400. And, I mean, I really could have gotten away from that hand. I overplayed it. I could have just done a standard continuation bet. And then when he shoved, I could have gotten away from it and saved at least, 1,500 chips. But I wanted to continue being aggressive. Really, the entire tournament, I've been showing aggression without having to show really any garbage hands, without having to show any bluffs or weak holdings, and I was able to keep my image pretty solid. But even when I flipped over and showed my ace queen, it still was just, it was what it was. But I was pissed off at myself, for doing it. Ended up a couple hands after that. Now at this point, the blinds were 300, 600, and at that hand alone dropped me down to 2,400. I picked up ace-9 2 hands later. I pushed all in, took down the blinds and antes. Picked up ace-8 pretty quick after that. Pushed all in, picked up the blinds and antes. Picked up pocket deuces, pushed all in. Picked up the blinds and antes. And then had a few hands that I, dropped back down. Hands that I wanted to see a flop with, but, then somebody else would push all in or somebody would raise. And I shouldn't have been playing them in anyway with where my M was at. And that was a kind of, amateur hour from my perspective. I really shouldn't have been playing them. I really should have just been waiting, around for a spot where I could get in first in vigorish and, get the best potential for my all-in. But I'm a sucker for suited connectors sometimes and, suited face cards and suited aces and stuff. So ended up finally dropping down to, I had about 1,750 chips left, and had a 6 offsuit, and shoved, ended up getting 1 caller, almost was going to be 2 callers, but got 1 caller, and he had ace-8, and I did not hit my 3-outer, sadly, so ended up going out in 5th place, which sucked, because it was the bubble for the money. They only pay out the top 4 at that time, so that kind of sucked. I ended up bubbling the money. But at the end of the day, I felt pretty good because I played a pretty solid tournament. It was a crazy final table. I mean, some of those things were just cold decks. Some of those things I could have done a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I'm all right with it. I think I played pretty well. I probably should tighten up just a little bit and stop letting... It's not even letting my ego get in front of me, because it's not even so much my ego as to why I was trying to push certain people around, but I do feel that it was, I was going too much off of past knowledge. But in the same sense, if he hadn't hit a set of 8s, I probably could have taken the pot down. So I don't know. I mean, that's up in the air. I got to talk to my boy Bill about it and see what he thinks. So anyway, there you go. That is my recap and wrap-up video for event number 2 of the Arizona Poker Tour, season 15. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think that I should have laid off a couple of those hands, or if I should have played them differently. I am happy with the 5th place. I did get some decent points, and I was really hoping to pull final table every single event this year, but sadly, first event I didn't. Got 11th, 1 off. So we'll see what happens now. Hopefully I can pull out final table for the rest of them. We'll see what happens. But thanks as always for checking out my videos. I definitely appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely hit me up. I always want to hear back from people and see what you guys think of the review, what you guys think of how I played, the hands themselves, and all that. So, as always, Matthew Maley for MatthewMaley.com. Check out all the rest of my videos if you would. Log on to MatthewMaley.com, click the video blog tab. You got everything right there that you can check out. Or if you want to watch them up on YouTube, you can either double click those videos right there. They'll send you over to YouTube. Or you can search for me on YouTube at Matthew Maley Poker. Once you're on there, go ahead and comment on the videos. Maybe throw me a like or 2. As well as you can subscribe to my channel, so you'll be the first to know as soon as anything new pops up. Of course, as always, you can follow me up on Twitter. As you guys know, when I'm in tournaments or anything like that, I'm always tweeting pretty much live. Honestly, when any hands continue, at least until I get bigger and people know to look there. So for the current time, I'll let you guys in on it. And of course, that's at Matthew Maley. And then as always, like your boy's page on Facebook. Search for Matthew Maley Poker, and I always post up my bigger topics and stuff on there. So, thank you again for checking out my videos, and until the next one, I'm out. Peace out, y'all.